This is a Stihl MS-29 chainsaw, and the problem with this saw is the oil pump which lubricates the chain is not working correctly, so the chain is not being lubricated at all. And the reason that's happening is because the worm gear which drives the oil pump is defective. So in this video I will be disassembling this saw and replacing the defective worm gear. The first step is to remove this sprocket cover, and to get this off you need to remove these two sprocket cover mounting nuts. They are 19 millimeter. And with those off you can remove the cover. Next step is to remove the chain and bar and set that aside. Now is a good time to clean up this area of the chainsaw. If the chainsaw hasn't been cleaned in a while, it's going to be caked with wood chips that have been soaked in bar chain oil. Also clean up the inside of the sprocket cover. The reason it's important to have all this clean is because we're going to be working with the clutch, removing the clutch, and you don't want to get grease or oil on the clutch because it can cause it to slip. Next thing, we need to remove this clutch hub slash spur sprocket, and to get this off we need to remove this E-clip and this washer here. Underneath this clutch hub is a needle cage bearing which you also need to remove. So start by removing this E-clip, set that aside, remove the washer, and then just lift off the clutch hub and set that aside, and there is the needle cage. This is the main part of the clutch, and it is attached to the crankshaft using left-hand threads, which means to loosen this clutch from the crankshaft I need to turn it to the right to loosen and to the left to tighten. But as you can see, as I turn this clutch, the crankshaft is turning with the clutch, which is a problem, and it won't allow me to remove the clutch from the crankshaft. So our next step is to prevent the crankshaft from turning so that I can loosen up this clutch and remove it from the crankshaft. To prevent the crankshaft from turning, we need to remove the spark plug. So remove this cover by turning this knob here, pulling the cover off, set it aside. Just lift this piece out and set that aside, and then remove your spark plug cap. Now, before I reach in there with a spark plug wrench to remove the spark plug, make sure that this area is clean. You don't want any sawdust or dirt falling into your cylinder when you remove the spark plug. I'm going to be using compressed air to make sure that there's no debris near the spark plug, but just use whatever you have just to get this area clean. Now take your spark plug wrench and remove the spark plug. Stihl makes a special tool called a locking strip, which you can insert through the spark plug hole, and that tool comes into contact with a piston and prevents it from turning, which in turn prevents the crankshaft from turning, and that will allow you to loosen or tighten the clutch. But if you don't have that tool, you can also do the same thing with rope. So what I'm going to be doing is using about 1.5 to 2 feet of this rope. I'm going to insert it through the spark plug hole to prevent the piston from moving. But before I do that, I want to position the piston about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch from the top of its stroke. That way I know that the piston is covering up the ports in the cylinder, so when I go to insert the rope, I know that this rope is not going to become lodged in between the piston and the ports. So I'll show you how to do that next. Gently rotate the clutch and crankshaft in the direction that will unscrew this clutch from the crankshaft. Since it's left-hand thread, you want to turn it to the right or clockwise direction. While you're slowly turning the clutch, gently insert a clean screwdriver through your spark plug hole, and you're going to use the screwdriver to detect when the piston is about 1/2 inch before the top of its stroke, which is about right right there, and I'm going to stop the piston right there so I can now insert the rope into the cylinder. Now get your rope and make sure that the end of it isn't frayed. If it is, just take a lighter and melt it and kind of match it together, and then insert your rope into the cylinder. It helps if you use some needle nose pliers and just force about a foot and a half of it into your cylinder. Now take your socket and ratchet and unscrew your clutch, and remember that's left-hand thread, so you want to turn it to the right to loosen. And you can unscrew it from the crankshaft and then remove it. Make sure that you don't get any grease or oil on the clutch, because it will cause it to slip, and then set it aside. Okay, this is my oil pump right here, and this part right here is my worm gear, which is attached to this arm. This arm is actually turned from your clutch drum. So to get this off, just pull it off. And you can see on this worm gear there are threads, and when this thing turns, it turns a gear in this pump and pumps oil to the chain. And you can see the threads on this are not in good shape. Like right here, it's missing part of the threads. And if you do find that your worm gear is missing the threads, make sure you look in here, and if you see any pieces, remove them before you insert the new worm gear. Here's another photo or video of the worm gear. This is my old one, this is the new one, and you can see just how much better the new one is, and you can see the damage on this old worm gear. Yeah, it's missing whole sections of the threads here on the old worm gear. Now take your new worm gear, slide it over the crankshaft and press it into place. Make sure that it's resting snugly and properly against the oil pump. And then take your clutch, the main part of the clutch that we just took off, and screw it onto the crankshaft. Remember, it's left-hand thread, so we turn it left to tighten, or counterclockwise. And just lightly tighten it by hand. Now I'm going to go through the same process to tighten the clutch. First, remove the rope and turn the clutch or crankshaft in the direction that tightens the clutch, and then gently insert the screwdriver and position the piston about a half an inch to an inch before the top of its stroke, which is about right there, and then insert about a foot and a half of this rope into the cylinder through the spark plug. Okay, with the rope inserted into the cylinder, we're ready to tighten up this clutch. For this next step, you're going to need a torque wrench. This clutch should be tightened to 50 Newton meters or 37 foot-pounds. And remember, it's left-hand thread, so we're going to be turning it left or counterclockwise to tighten it. So take your torque wrench and tighten it down to 37 foot-pounds. Which is right there. Next, we need to install the needle cage bearing. Take a rag and make sure the end of the crankshaft where the needle bearing goes is clean. And also, you can use white spirit to clean clean this needle cage bearing, make sure that it's clean, and then take some steel multi-purpose grease. I'll put the item number for this grease in the description. You don't need a lot of it, just a little bit. Cover the bearing with some grease. Remember, you don't need a lot. You don't want the grease to get on the clutch. You want it to stay on the bearing. And place the bearing on the crankshaft. Now I'm ready to install the clutch hub. There's the hub. Make sure that it's clean. I took some brake cleaner and sprayed it down and wiped it down to make sure it's clean. On this clutch hub there is a notch right here, and what that notch is for is it fits over this arm which is attached to the worm gear, something like this. And when this clutch hub turns, it turns this worm gear by way of this arm, and you can see that arm, the new arm on the new worm gear, it's just right down there. So when I go to install this clutch hub, I want to make sure that that notch is directly over that arm so that they come into contact, and this clutch hub is able to turn the arm and the worm gear when the clutch hub turns. So I've got the notch in the clutch hub lined up with that arm, and I'm ready to insert the clutch hub. And make sure that it sits down all the way. If you don't have it lined up properly, it won't insert all the way. Now reinstall the washer and reinstall the E-clip. If you don't have that clutch hub notch lined up right and it's not going to sit all the way, you'll know because you won't be able to. There won't be room enough for this E-clip to attach to the end of the crankshaft. So I'm not going to show any more of the assembly. It's just putting the chain and sprocket, or chain and bar back on, and the sprocket cover, and the reinstalling the spark plug and that outer cover for the spark plug. But anyway, that's how you install a worm gear on a Stihl MS-29 chainsaw. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section. God bless, and thanks for watching.